for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in the Associated Student Government. It is with great pleasure that we welcome you to the 2023 Inclusion Forum. The Inclusion Forum is an annual event created to highlight students in marginalized communities, tell their stories, and emphasize the tone for advocacy in allyship each year. Before we begin, we would like to honor the Maiamia tribe by reading the land acknowledgement.
Miami University is located within the traditional homelands of the Maiamia and Shawnee people, who, along with other indigenous groups, ceded these lands to the United States in the First Treaty of Greenville in 1795. The Miami people, whose name our university carries, were forcibly removed from these homelands in 1846. In 1972, a relationship between Miami University and the Miami tribe of Oklahoma began and evolved into a reciprocal partnership, including the creation of the Maiamia Center at Miami University in 2001. The work of the Maiamia Center serves the Miami tribe community and is dedicated to the revitalization of Miami language and culture and to restoring the knowledge to the Maiamia people. Miami University and the Miami tribe are proud of this work and of the more than 140 Maiamia students who have attended Miami since 1991 through the Maiamia Heritage Award Program.
Hey everyone, my name is Jack Isfording, and again, welcome to the 2023 Inclusion Forum. The theme of this year's forum is Inclusion with Intention. This theme was chosen by the Planning Committee based on the need for more dialogue and emphasis around intersectionality during events or inclusive efforts. Because while including one particular identity, but not considering intersectional identities may seem inclusive, it is not intentional. To our lovely Planning Committee, inclusion with intention means advocating with, not for, multicultural and marginalized populations. It signifies embracing inclusivity out of genuine compassion and not merely in response to policies or rallies mandating inclusive practices. It also means being aware that we are not just one identity, but made up of many intersectional identities and experiences that make us unique. Through this theme and forum, we intend to highlight the shift from merely being an individual ally to actively forging partnerships with both the individual and communities. So how do we move forward and be intentional? Today, we will have various students in multicultural communities presenting on the role you can play in being intentionally inclusive. We will also have a panel discussion featuring dedicated individuals at Miami's. To kick things off, our keynote speaker will dive into the topic of intentional inclusion, building a community one friend at a time. But before that, let's bring up our student body vice president, Jules Jefferson, to do the honors of introducing our speaker.
Greetings, my name is Jules Jefferson. I'm pleased to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Cynthia Dietel. She's a retired Federal Bureau of Investigation special agent who has diligently and passionately worked to make her community and the country a more just and equitable place. Dietel served in the FBI for 22 years in the Civil Rights Unit in Washington and rose to the level of unit chief. She led cases in police brutality and hate crime cases, color of law, human trafficking, and abortion extremism programs, as well as the Cold Case Initiative. Dietel also has an extensive and impressive service record from serving as a director or board member in nonprofit organizations such as the Matthew Shepard Foundation and Children with Diabetes, to volunteering to lead the FBI's efforts in assisting the individuals and their families impacted by the events on September 11th, 2001 and April 15th, 2013. In 2011, Dieter transferred to the Boston Division to supervise the public corruption and civil rights programs in Massachusetts, Maine, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. Today, Dieter works at Meta as the Director of Associated General Counsel for Civil Rights. She is also an adjunct professor at Lawrence State Community College in Tennessee and a guest lecturer at Northeastern University School of Law's Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Clinic. Dido, we're truly honored to have you as a guest keynote speaker for the forum, and we look forward to learning and listening to you.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Okay, you can't hear me, right? Hello. Should we try that one again? Hello? Well, good evening, and I want to thank August, where are you, for your extremely diligent efforts in inviting me to come here to Miami University. I flew into Cincinnati this afternoon. I peeled away from a family vacation in Disney. I'd rather be here. Just because I was so impressed with August and with this program, and I'm just honored and delighted to be here. So thank you so much. And thank you to Miami for hosting an inclusion forum. This is not standard in colleges and universities across the country. I don't know if you know that, but this is a very unique forum and experience, and I commend Miami for doing this. As some of you may know, I am from the great state of Ohio. I was born and raised in Akron. I went to St. Vincent St. Mary High School and the Ohio State University. Don't hate me. It's I know, I'm a Buckeye, but I appreciate the invitation to return home. When August shared this theme with me, I was a bit taken aback, and I wasn't sure if I could craft remarks that would be meaningful. I thought about inclusion, about intention. How do these complex and often misunderstood and sometimes weaponized words go together? How do they fit together? In my job as Director and Associate General Counsel at Meta, formerly known as Facebook, I'm tasked with some pretty awesome responsibilities. My team and I strive to make sure that everything Meta does is seen through a civil rights lens. We don't want Meta to hurt any marginalized community through our products or our policies. One of my roles is to train law enforcement officers and prosecutors on how to effectively engage with vulnerable populations so that if they are impacted by hate, folks who have the awesome responsibility to protect them will have the tools to know how to do so. And they will know how to use our platform for good. When I begin these training seminars, I start with a pretty heavy question. I'd like to ask you the same question, as I think it will inform the discussion. How do we end? How does the United States end? We've seen through our history that all great nations and empires don't stay number one forever. The Han Dynasty, the Ottoman Empire, the British, the Romans, the Russians, the Spanish, were not ruled by any of them. They all ended. They all ruled for hundreds, if not thousands of years, but they all ended. They all failed for several reasons, some of which included internal strife and the rise of nationalism in the territories they conquered. If they ended, won't we? Internal strife. We've seen that the leaders of nations not only allowed their people to turn on each other, but they encouraged the internal strife. They allowed one group of people to otherize another group. One became good and righteous, and one became the enemy, often overnight, for religious, racial, ethnic, or caste reasons. One group wanted to remain in power and violently suppressed and destroyed the other through ostracizing, marginalizing, and sadly, genocide. We turn on our neighbors on a dime. Jews during the Holocaust, Ukrainians at the hands of Joseph Stalin. The Khmer Rouge slaughtered Cambodians. Rwanda, Armenia, Myanmar, Sudan. We're not immune from turning on each other. How can we prevent this in the future? How can we stop the U.S. from failing, from encouraging or inciting internal strife? What can you do? What can you do every day to bring people together and not drive them apart? Intentional inclusion. Inclusion. Belonging. Everyone wants to belong to something, someone, some group of people. When we belong, we feel valued, appreciated, and safe. Babies are born with a need to belong, feel attached to and connected with their parents. They develop a close attachment bond with their caregiver if they receive genuine love and attention. Babies need this close bond for their brain, social, emotional, and cognitive development. Neglect, abandonment, parental inconsistency, abuse, and lack of love can lead to long-term mental health challenges, as well as to reduced overall potential and happiness. We know this. All over the world, we know this to be true. We all want to feel included, like we belong. Intention. Purpose to achieve something. A wish that one means to carry out. Initiating. Sustaining. In my world as a lawyer, retired FBI agent, associate general counsel on the civil rights team at Meta, I look at intent and intention as an action or a decision that is not a mistake or an accident or even negligent. Let's put them together. Intentional inclusion. We see the beauty in our world when we put these two together. We find joy. A healthy society thrives when a web of institutions provides a support structure for individuals, families, schools, faith communities, workplaces, neighborhoods, community organizations, clubs. These institutions foster kindness, compassion, support in the time of need. We need to intentionally foster these groups and connections and expand them to breed and spread kindness. Intentional inclusion. How do you welcome a new student in class? A new member of your sorority or your club? Especially if that person is very different from you. Do you shy away from them? What about people who think differently than you do? How do you engage in constructive conversation and dialogue? Oh, you had me at hello. Say hi. Ask their name. Where do they live? What's their major? Are they involved in any clubs or groups? What are you interested in? I belong to the pickleball club. Want to join? Oh, okay. Not your thing? Cool. You can check out this website or campus office to find a club that may interest you. I hope our paths cross again. I live over there at Steve Hall. Mentorship. Encouragement. Do you help others find their purpose? Find their why? Live by example. Bring others with you. Be the first to volunteer, first to offer help, the first to raise your hand. Grow your capacity for graciousness. We learn our most important virtues from others in our lives, and we amplify those virtues through repetition and practice. Your moral compass should be your why. It should be strong and unwavering, even in the face of the greatest challenges. What happens if we don't? What happens if we don't practice intentional inclusion? We routinely see in our everyday lives instances and circumstances where one person or a group of people purposefully excludes another person, right? We know from our own history that in the United States, we have a long, terrible, tragic history of excluding marginalized communities, vulnerable populations. those pushed to the periphery of society. Intentional exclusion. Our country has seen the slaughter of Native Americans, the lynching of over 4,400 Black people, mostly in the South, the targeting of Mexican Americans in the 1930s. That's my story. My grandparents who had to flee San Antonio for fear of being targeted by the Texas Rangers. Chinese immigrants on the West Coast, Japanese Americans during World War II, Muslim Americans after 9/11, who were thought to be responsible for destroying the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and for crashing a plane full of innocent people into a field in Pennsylvania. Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders who were thought to be responsible for the COVID-19 pandemic. We turn on each other on a dime. How did this happen? How did we allow this to happen? Evil thrives when good people do nothing. We've all heard this, right? People are complacent, often paralyzed by fear, which is certainly understandable. What if they come for me next? What if there's retribution? I guarantee you that there are options. While protecting your own and others' safety, and without putting yourself at risk, there's always a way to join together, to find your tribe, and stop a dangerous turn before we witness catastrophic circumstances. There is always a way. Watch, observe, listen. Please stop and listen. You don't have to fill silence with noise. Think, act. What do we know to be true? Hate crimes rose in 2020 to their highest level in 12 years. Murder rates are surging, as are gun sales. Social trust is plummeting. What happens when we intentionally exclude? The percentage of people who say they don't have close friends has increased 4-fold since 1990. The percentage of Americans ages 25 to 54 who weren't married or living with a romantic partner went up 38%. More than half of Americans say that no one knows them well. Sadness, loneliness, exclusion turn into anger and resentment. Rejection is invisibility, devalued, otherized. When people feel that they are unheard, disrespected, victimized, and ostracized, these feelings register as injustices. People who feel they have been wronged, especially those who feel intentionally excluded because of an immutable characteristic, often lash out and seek revenge against those perceived to be responsible. They become the aggressor, the bully, the assailant, all in the name of seeking the justice they feel they were denied. Each of you has a decision to make today, tonight. What can you do every day to practice intentional inclusion? What can you do to prevent and stop the targeting of people just because of how they identify? How can you be a part of the solution and not the problem? Watch, listen, think, and act. There's no action that's too small. Encouraging words, a heartfelt smile. Attend cultural events on campus, bring your friends. March with your LGBTQ friends in the Pride Parade. Attend religious services with your Jewish roommate. Be curious, stay curious. Explore and appreciate the differences in each of us. Oh God, now I'm gonna date myself. In 1985, I pledged the Tri-Delt sorority at Ohio State. 85, okay, I know, I'm old. No one in my family was in the Greek system, and I really didn't get the whole deal. But I knew I wanted to make that giant campus a lot smaller. I wanted to find my tribe. I remember the first photo that was taken of our entire house, all the women living in the house, everyone. I was startled to see how different we all looked. The more I stared at the photo, the more I saw our differences. Socioeconomic, children of immigrants, different faiths, sexual orientation, race, different paths for our future. But we intentionally joined together and brought other people along who were unlike any of us, except we felt a bond, a connection, and that brought us joy. I knew that on some level in 1985, without knowing anything about diversity or equity or inclusion or accommodation, that I liked to be around people who were different from me. I knew I liked the differences in each of us, and that feeling brought me joy. We all need to do our part to grow and to build a culture, to help everyone be who they were meant to be, the best possible them. Start small if necessary. Say hi and smile to your classmate wearing a hijab or a yarmulke or a Black Lives Matter pin. Act, don't be afraid. Dig deep and find your courage. Find that inner bravery. Go to that place where you lead and you soar. You'll be amazed at how great you feel and how contagious kindness is. Be the change. Be the person who practices intentional inclusion every day. You and the world will be better for it. Thank you.
Now we're gonna take some questions for our keynote speaker.
Oh God, you really are gonna ask me questions? I was gonna get away with this in August, that's why I went to my seat. Hi. You're just getting the microphone ready, you're not gonna ask a question? Now you have to ask a question.
I'm passing it.
No, you have to ask a question. Ask a very easy question. I'll help you.
Okay.
I would love to join the FBI. How do I do that? You know?
I would love to join the FBI. How do I do that?
Anybody want to join the? No, nobody wants to join the FBI. Seriously? Okay, you just did that to be nice. I know you did. Okay, who wants to be a lawyer? Oh, better. Okay. Who would love, okay, let's try to steer you into this. Who would love to be a lawyer and then join the FBI to work civil rights? You didn't, that's fake. That's not even true. I know. I don't know. I thought you were being kind. So that was the path that I took many years ago. I very shortly will share a very quick story. So born and raised in Akron, and when I was in seventh grade, we had to do our first research paper. Back then, there's like, go to the library, get those 3x5 cards, actually check books out of the library. We could do the research paper on anything, and I did on the Kent State shooting. I didn't live far from Kent State. It must have been an anniversary, maybe, I'm thinking, of the shooting in 1970. And as much as a 13-year-old could do, I did research, wrote a paper, and I was convinced at the age of 13 that the worst thing that could happen to a human was to be attacked or slaughtered innocently just because you're on a college campus. I couldn't get past that. I thought these kids were just going to class. The 4 that were killed were not involved in the anti-war demonstrations, and they were killed by the government. And I thought that was the worst thing that could happen. And so I wanted to be a police officer. My father said absolutely not. He wanted me to be a lawyer like him. I didn't know what that was, except it looked gross and icky. But he said, well, you could be in the FBI. And I'm like, what's that? It's like the best law enforcement. And I said, well, then I want to do that. He goes, oh, they only take lawyers. You have to go to law school. What did I know? I was 13. So I went to law school and joined the FBI specifically to work civil rights, which is what I wanted to do and I was able to do, and I was very grateful to be able to do it. Thank you for your question. Okay, whose Facebook account has been hacked? Do we want to go down that road? More people? Do we all have two-factor authentication? Please tell me you have two-factor. Thank you. Always the best way to prevent your account from getting hacked. Someone raise their hand. Yes. Over there. Yeah. That's a gimme. I met her before.
5 minutes ago.
I met you 5 minutes ago. That's true.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. So, as an aspiring art teacher and English as a second language teacher, how can I maintain the mindset to be intentionally inclusive while being receptive to all the horrible things going on in the world seemingly constantly? How do you maintain that hope and positivity as you go throughout life and just see all this stuff happen around you? And how can I bring that into the classroom and like make sure to acknowledge but also not like put negativity onto my students?
If any of you have ever studied, yeah, that's an easy one, thanks. If any of you ever studied or learned about or saw the movie Milk, yep, okay. So Harvey Milk and others have kind of used this phrase about you gotta give them hope. And I love that line because what else is there really? I mean, don't you want to lead with hope? And especially if you're a teacher, you're going into teaching, mentorship, guiding young folks, you have to give them hope. You can't give them doom and gloom because they're going to be in charge someday. So you want to give them hope and find the bright spots and to do it exactly the way you said, is to acknowledge, hey, sometimes really bad things happen and something really bad could have happened on campus yesterday, or something could have happened really terrible in the Gaza Strip, or something could happen somewhere else in the world. But you have to dig deep and tell them that what I believe is out of every tragedy or horrible event, there is some hope. And I learned that really through crime victims. So I was in New York during 9/11 in the FBI, and I spent over 3 months every single day with the families and the victims and the survivors. And they taught me so much about hope and just not giving up and not crawling into a hole to throw in the towel. But they taught me so much about resiliency and determination and continuing to find their why and to find room for advocacy. And I think that's how you get there with them, is to keep telling them to never give up and find their why. I had never give up. I had, last week I spent several hours with Susan Rowe. She lost her daughter, Heather Heyer, in Charlottesville, Virginia, in the Unite the Right rally. She was the one fatality, in addition to the two law enforcement officers that were killed. She was the one fatality, and I asked her what her legacy and Heather's legacy, what she wanted them to be. And she said, you can't give up. You can never give up. I went through the worst experience of my life when I lost my daughter, but I never gave up. So I think you find role models like that and you give people hope.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yes, right there in the front row.
Thank you. So I was just I was just curious what abortion extremism programs are.
Got it. Good, great question. In the United States, there is a federal law that protects the people and the structures themselves that provide reproductive health services, abortion clinics. It's short term, doesn't really incorporate everything, but a women's reproductive health care facility is protected under federal law. You can't bomb it, destroy it, set it on fire. If you do that, it violates federal law. If you bother patients coming in, going out, parking their car, if you bother any of the workers, healthcare providers, nurses, doctors, clinic staff, that is also a violation of federal law. So back in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, I should say, there was a spate of reproductive health care clinics in Canada and the US that were targeted. Physicians that provide abortion services and other services were shot and killed. Clinic staff were shot and killed. Eric Rudolph, who blew up the Oklahoma Olympics in 1996 in Atlanta, Georgia, he was responsible for blowing up several abortion clinics in Georgia and in Alabama. But several doctors were shot and killed, and there wasn't a federal law to get at that. There were state laws, a murder law, but there wasn't a law to get at that crime federally. And Congress also joined together, oh my God, I said that out loud. Congress also joined together to agree that that should be a federal right. Women should have a right to reproductive health services and not be targeted for violence or harassment, etc. So there were several abortion clinics and doctors that were shot and killed when I was chief of the Civil Rights Unit, and so we led those investigations. But that's a great question.
Thank you.
Yes. Very nice person introduced me.
Was there one particular case that has stuck with you and changed how you operate as a professional and as a person in general for the rest of your career and life?
Yeah, there have been several, but I would point to 9/11 as just, again, spending 3 months every day, all day, every day, with people who had the worst day of their lives taught me so much about humanity and the power of forgiveness. I also helped the 3 families that lost someone in the Boston Marathon bombings several years ago. So there were 3 fatalities, and I spent a lot of time with those 3 families, and they also taught me the power of forgiveness, which was crazy. But I think those 2 cases, those stick with me because of really the victims and what they showed about their own journeys. I had is this being recorded?
Yes.
August. Okay. Let me see if I can do this the right way. So I had the opportunity to interview all 3 families, and the most surprising family was the one woman. Her parents, we flew in from China, and I was prepped by our translator. They didn't speak English, and I didn't speak Mandarin, so I was prepped by our linguist, who said, when you interview them, you're speaking with the father. Okay. They're also going to want you to answer one question first and foremost and immediately. I said, okay, where's the bracelet? I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what does that mean? And she said, she wore a jade bracelet. Do you have the jade bracelet? I'm like, I don't have any idea. I don't know. So I went back to our evidence people and got the bracelet. It had been cleaned and sanitized, and I got the bracelet. And the linguist said, is it intact or is it broken? It's intact. She said, that's all they're gonna wanna know. There is symbolism behind that. That's all they're gonna wanna know. And I said, okay. I would never have known that had she not told me. And sure enough, when I met them, they both were crying, and the father immediately wanted to know about the bracelet. And thankfully, we had it with us, and I presented it to him. And the other interesting thing about that conversation was I had to ask each family what they thought about the death penalty, because that was relevant. We wanted to know from each victim, what do you think about the death penalty for Zohar Tsarnaev? And they all gave 3 different answers. But the family from China, they crinkled up their face and they said, we don't understand. I'm like, right, okay, US law. So in US law, I tried to explain death penalty was an option. And they still didn't understand. And I said, okay, maybe I'm not being clear. Do you have a question? and about our criminal justice system. I'm trying to, make it really simple so you understand. I'm not doing a good job. Is there a question I can answer? And they said, we don't know why you're asking us this. Oh, okay, well, it's part of our process. We want to know what you think, what you feel. And they said, well, but in China we have a much different criminal justice system than you do here. And it was interesting to hear how they felt about the death penalty versus other families, and just again this notion for many of them about the power of forgiveness and humanity, and how there is no life for a life. That's not justice for some of them. But I learned the most from the families, the survivors of crime, more than anything else. Any other questions? Now, does somebody want to be in the FBI? No. Oh yes, in the back. Hi. You probably scream really loud and I can hear you. No? You don't want to? Okay.
So how do you actively, as a part of Meta, how do you actively deal with inclusion with a increasingly online and anonymized world that we live in?
So our team, the civil rights team, does our level best to lead by example. So what we try to do is make sure that every cultural moment we write and celebrate that moment. So tomorrow is National Coming Out Day. We wrote a post that we circulate internally that talks about National Coming Out Day and what it is and why we feel it should be celebrated. It could be Black History Month, National Hispanic, all the cultural moments we write about, and try to pass that note internally to give folks understanding of what that is and why we feel it's important. So that's the one thing. Our goal at Meta, and this is such an awesome, sometimes extremely difficult goal, is to balance voice. We want you to use our platform to use your voice, whether it's on WhatsApp or Oculus, the headset, Instagram, Facebook, right, Threads. We want you to use your voice and build your community and bring people together and start your pages and your fundraising and go shopping, all the things. We want you to use your voice. At the same time, we don't want you to use it to harm people. So we have to balance this voice and safety equation in everything that we do. We want you to use your voice, but you have to do it in a way where you're not going to hurt somebody else. And you think about our platform, 3 billion users, 3 billion, billions of pieces of content every single day in multitude of languages in every country. The United States is not the most prolific user of our platform. So we have to be mindful of what's happening all over the world and try to make sure that we can reach and touch and accommodate everybody who uses our platform all across the world, and make sure that we understand all the cultural sensitivities and what's happening in a specific region of a specific country, and how we interpret language and symbols, again, to amplify voice and to try to tamp down on harm. So it's balancing that. And like you said, if you're on WhatsApp, that's encrypted. I don't know what you put on WhatsApp. We can't tell law enforcement what's on your WhatsApp chat because I can't get at that. So we do also want to provide a space that is encrypted. And a lot of folks use WhatsApp for safety, for security reasons, and to talk about very dangerous situations that they find themselves in and they need help. So it's this balance. We try to do that balance every single day, and sometimes it's quite challenging. Yeah. Anything else? FBI? No? Still? Okay. What about the officer in the back? Do you want to join the FBI? She's like, I'm not part of this. Don't call on me.
How did you get to Meta from the FBI?
I retired from the FBI in 2017, and when I was getting ready to retire, eligible to retire, I saw that the Matthew Shepard Foundation had a job opening, and I had known Dennis and Judy Shepard for several years. I met them in 2009. If you know the story, Dennis and Judy Shepard lost their son Matthew exactly 25 years ago as a result of an anti-gay hate crime, a vicious anti-gay hate crime. Do you all know the story? Yes? No? No? Okay. So let me just very quickly. So Matt was a 21-year-old University of Wyoming student in 1998, and he went to a bar to have a Heineken, and he was approached by two men who thought that he had money and thought he was gay, and thought we could befriend him, probably rob him, be great. So they pretended to be gay, they befriended him, they offered him a ride home, they put him in their pickup truck and told him it was a robbery. He handed over his wallet, he handed over his shoes, and they thought, well, we can't just leave him because now he knows who we are. So they took him out to a very isolated part outside of Wyoming, or outside of Laramie, and tied him, beat him severely with a .357 Magnum, severely beat him, and tied him to a fence and left him to die. He was found by a passerby and died 10 days later in the hospital, surrounded by his family. The Shepards spent years trying to get a hate crime law passed that would incorporate the LGBTQ community, and they did. They got it passed in October of 2009. At the time, I was chief of the Civil Rights Unit, and I was in charge of enforcing this brand new criminal law. And so I met the Shepards, and we traveled together all over the country, talking about Matt and his story and this new law and what it would do. They needed a director, I needed a job, and they hired me, and it was great. I spent 4 years there. At the end of it, I was very tired from 4 years of nonprofit work. It was so fulfilling and rewarding, but I was pooped. I want to try to get into something different, and I was approached by Roy Austin, who is the vice president of the civil rights team at Meta, and he and I have known each other for years. And he approached me and asked me if I wanted to join him at Facebook. And I was honored and privileged and said yes. So, never thought I'd work in tech, but here I am almost 2.5 years later and thoroughly enjoying the ride. Anybody else? Yes? You want to scream? You have a loud voice?
It was mentioned that you're a professor. What do you teach?
Oh, so I teach criminal justice at Rowan State Community College. I also, I'm a guest lecturer at Northeastern Law School. They have a civil rights and restorative justice project there at Northeastern Law. And what they do is they try to go back in time and uncover instances of racial terror, racial violence, usually in the South, from like 1930 to 1970, and see if they can resurrect those stories and those histories and work on some restorative justice programs with the community. So for example, someone that was killed by law enforcement in 1930 in Louisiana, the law students try to resurrect that story, interview anybody who has knowledge of it, go into that community, and then bring the Black community and law enforcement and government together to try to do some restorative justice work. So I participate with that, and then I just started teaching this semester at Miami. I know, no, it's not here. God, why do you both have the same name? At Miami Law in Miami, Florida. I started teaching co-teaching a class, criminal civil rights investigations and prosecutions for pretty much we think as law students that want to go into the FBI or the Department of Justice to work on hate crimes, police brutality, that type of thing. So I do that every Thursday night. Yeah. Done a couple different things, but thank you. Thank you so much. And again, thank you to August and thank you to Miami. I really appreciate the invitation to chat with you all, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the program. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Cynthia, for your impactful words. You really emphasize the way that we can work to accept others and our differences and create an inclusive community as a result. We will now transition to performances and presentations from multicultural student orgs in Miami. Students are a significant aspect of this forum, and we are honored to have these individuals part of the forum. With that, we will introduce the Nepalese Student Society for a cultural dance performance.
Next, we have the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students, or MAPS, speaking on underrepresentation in Miami and the role of MAPS at Miami.
Hi everyone. We are MAPS, the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students. My name is Stella Lacusa. I am the president of MAPS, and this is Elijah Gunn. He's the vice president, and we will be talking about there we go. Underrepresentation in medicine, the role of MAPS at Miami. So I'm just going to start by reading the quote. I think it serves as a good way to introduce our presentation. Through community service and dedication to eliminating ethnic health disparities, we strive to provide ourselves and those around us with a larger sense of being. We stand strong in the light of the many that struggled before us and are hopeful that we make each step easier for those who come after us. We are leaders in our communities. So our goal today is to inform you all about the different health disparities in medicine and why the establishment of MAPS on this campus aids in its elimination, as well as why MAPS continuously needs support in the providing of resources to students pursuing a career in healthcare.
So there's an underrepresentation of minorities within medical professions. Looking at some data collected from 2021 and starting with the physician associate, the majority identify as white, being 70.7%, then 10.8% Asian, 9.8% Hispanic Latino, and only 5.5% being Black or African American. Moving on, we see a similar trend with the nurse practitioner, where 8.5% identify as Asian, 6.5% as Black or African American, and only 6.4% are Hispanic Latino. Finally, we also have the physician, where we see 65.6% identify as white, 18.1% as Asian, 8.9% as Hispanic or Latino, and only 4.7% as Black or African American. And while these are only 3 professions, the list can go on and on. You see similar trends. We chose these 3 professions as some popular career aspirations within our MAPS community, and we just really want to stress the large discrepancy of racial minorities within the medical field.
So the statistics mentioned on this slide speaks of numerous health disparities found in medicine in accordance to race and ethnicity. This first one, between March 2020 and June 2021, Hispanic or Latino and non-Hispanic Black people were hospitalized with COVID-19 at a rate 2.8 times higher than non-Hispanic white people. And all of these statistics shows a clear disproportion in the hospitalizations, mortality rate, and pregnancy or birth complications of minority groups in the US. Although it's plausible to have been risen from a lack of diet-related efforts in marginalized communities, the overarching issue at hand is the disparities within healthcare. As these disparities also lead to medical mistrust. So something that I want to highlight on this, mistrust may prevent people from getting care. People who say they mistrust healthcare organizations are actually less likely to take medical advice, keep follow-up appointments, or fill prescriptions. All this to say, in order to work towards the elimination of ethnic health disparity, inclusivity must be at the forefront of our minds. Our call to action is to intentionally make students feel encouraged to enter the medical field, subconsciously working towards the rebuilding of citizen trust towards health professions.
So there are a number of things minority pre-health students may need along their college journey, but may struggle in finding or accessing. And this can be a variety of factors, whether it's mentorship, patient care experience, research opportunities, academic support, grad school preparation, or MCAT or other prospective testing supports. But I also want to highlight this also goes way beyond academics and may also be in the need of advocacy, or being a part of a strong community, or having a sense of belonging.
So the role of MAPS, we are a multicultural organization that serves underrepresented students looking to pursue a career in healthcare. Our founders, SNMA, or the Student National Medical Association, holds that same mission statement. And through them, we've been given access to resources for students who may not know where to go for career development tools and medical school prep, but there's still so much that we have to do. But essentially our role is to be a pipeline between a dream and reality to students hopeful to change the trajectory of what medicine looks like today. Thank you.
Next, we're going to have the Student Vietnamese Association that is going to speak on a topic from food to family, a cultural journey with VSA.
Hello everyone, my name is Nhi Nguyen and I'm the VP of Marketing and Communication for Vietnamese Students Association.
And hi everyone, my name is Lynn and I'm the president of Vietnamese Student Association, or you can call us VSA. And today we'll talk about our cultural contribution to Miami University community through our presentation. And Jessica will start first.
So, from food to culture. A little bit introduction about ourselves. So we are VSA, and we are the Vietnamese Students Association. We're here to represent the Vietnamese community here on campus, and we also here to help promote the Vietnamese culture, history, and background across Miami University. So our purpose is to help our campus to create friendship with other students on campus and to encourage professional development through workshops with alumni and guest speakers. A little bit about the magical Vietnamese cuisine. So Vietnamese is a tapestry of different flavors and dishes from across 3 regions, from northern, central, and south. From the fresh herbs and to the richness of the ingredients and flavors, it creates a very unique taste of Vietnamese cuisine. Can I ask, did anyone in here attend the Asian Cultural Festival from AAA last Friday? Wow, that's very impressive. I was there on Friday to represent Vietnam and to introduce Vietnam to the people who attend the festival. And I'm still so honored to be able to be invited by AAA to be there and to talk about my country. But one thing that I noticed is that I usually ask the people who come to our booth, like, what do you know about Vietnam? And not so many people have the answer to that. They don't even know where Vietnam is, and they don't even know what do we have. So I hope that after today's presentation, you guys have somewhat ideas of what the Vietnamese culture is and how the Vietnamese cuisine does shape our culture. Sorry. So I think to me, the Vietnamese cuisine stands out as it is very complicated and it has a very high artistry aspect to it, as the person who cooks have to dedicate a lot of hours and a lot of articulation into the dish. So for me, like usually when I make dinner, it usually lasted about 2 hours to make a Vietnamese food. But would I still do it? Yes, I do, because that's what I've been taught since I was a little kid, to be appreciative of food and to be and to have that precision in choosing ingredients and to making the Vietnamese food. So I think that is why there are a lot of layers into my Vietnamese food, and my favorite dish to cook is pho. And I love it because it has a lot of level of umami and balance, as well as the complicatedness within the dish. So here I want to introduce you to two of our favorite, very popular but also very distinct flavors of Vietnam, which the first one is called fish sauce. It's an intricate process of fermenting fish and salt, resulting in a complex and essential condiments that defines Vietnamese flavors. If you guys try it the first time, just a little cautious that it is very strong and you might want to take it with caution. The second one, I think it's more popular. It's called pho broth, and it's like hours of simmering broth and bones and spices to condense into this broth. And we usually eat it with pho, with the beef noodle, and all of the other condiments. Pho is really like a heart of Vietnam, condensed within 6 or 8 hours of cooking. So if you have never tried pho, I do highly recommend you try it, as I also recommend the people who come to our Vietnamese booth on last Friday. And do you guys know about the 5 Love Language by Gary Shepard? So in Vietnam, we also have the 6th love language. It's called food. And now Linh will introduce you guys to the Vietnamese family meal and how we portray love.
Right, thank you, Jessica. So to me, I believe that regarding today's theme is the inclusivity. So to me, inclusivity happens in both ways. So we come to Miami University community, we bring our values and our cultures, and in return, we also expect and hope that everyone know about and understand our culture as well. And I always tell my friends that if you want to learn more about Vietnam, you should start with Vietnamese cuisine, because right at the first bite, you'll fall in love with it. So about Vietnamese family meal, I think that to understand about Vietnamese people, we bring a lot of family culture and family meals in our values. Can I follow that? Thank you. So our meals, especially dinner, is not just meal. It's not just about eating, but it's about family bonding. So what happens during a typical Vietnamese family meal? We often because everyone is very busy. So during the meal, we'll talk and sharing and understand each other. Use that value time to share our personal stories, even office or school dramas and stuff. It sounds like gossiping, but it's not what are you thinking right now? It's about understanding each other, using that valuable time together. And so that during having Vietnamese food, we often use chopsticks, right? And we also have a folktales, back in our country about chopsticks, that if just one chopstick, you can easily break it. But if you hold a bunch of them together, it's very hard to break it. So that it's just a metaphor for the solidity of family members. And yeah, about the culinary heritage. So Vietnamese family meals, they often cook it together as a family, and parents or grandparents will teach children to do and cook their meals. So for example, as international students coming here, we'll bring that it's kind of secret ingredients or recipes to bring and showcase that to our friends in here. So what does all of our speech
related to today's theme and related to our vision for inclusivity. And so, by the way, this is a photo from our newest event. It's the Mid-Autumn Festival. So our vision for inclusivity is to bring home away from home. So we believe that, as I mentioned, inclusivity is both ways. So we want to create events with inclusivity, welcome both Vietnamese students and all all Miami community. And we organize that event, include with our Vietnamese cuisines, because that's a very huge important part in our culture. And during that, we help encourage the meaningful interactions and form a support network for all students and ensure that everyone is loved and heard and valued. And this is the end of our presentation. And if you have any questions, we're welcome. And this is our contact points and also social media. And just keep in touch and keep updated with our upcoming events. Thank you.
Thank you. We are now halfway through the forum and we'll take a 5-minute break. Feel free to use this time to stretch and to use the bathroom. I would also encourage you to reflect on our keynote and presentations so far. Reflect on what you have learned and how you can practice building alliances and being intentional moving forward. You may also use this time to provide questions to our panel through the forum link or QR code in your event programs. After this short break, we will move on to more presentations from multicultural student organizations. Thank you.
Sienna? Does anyone have a pen? Yeah. So, as that's not presented, so this is going to be canceled, and then Sienna's going to take this part and just be fine.
Yeah, they actually missed.
So do I need to do anything?
No. Just one at a time.
Let me see. It's already gone. So, that's really good.
I'm back. So he is
Story.
Thomas is not Christina is after AAA. So nobody's switches? Yes, says that's not okay. So it's only after AAA.
Another pen.
You're introducing MUSG.
I was going to tell you how many is going and how proud I am of you.
You can just put it, throw it on my